Hello, everyone. In the middle of all the noise, the constant rushing, and the endless worries of everyday life, sometimes happiness still finds a way to quietly slip in. We all have dreams to chase, responsibilities weighing us down, and moments when the path ahead looks either lined with flowers or scattered with painful, uncertain crossroads. And yet, in those very moments, something inside us whispers, "Keep walking." Today is one of those days. D has made his choice. He knows full well what lies ahead. Not easy, but the resolve in his heart won't let him stop. Each step feels like shedding an old layer, leaving behind fragments of memories that once defined him. The sharp, heavy recollections have faded, like an old photograph forgotten in some corner. And then he arrives, standing before the courthouse door. This is where one chapter of his life will close. Not just any chapter, but one filled with brokenness, bitterness, and long nights of doubt. Yet beyond that door lies something far more significant: freedom. D takes a deep breath. The air is cold, sterile, as if the building itself is reminding him this is business, not emotion. With a steady voice, he speaks. "Hello, I'd like to file for divorce." Just a few simple words, but each syllable carries weight. A finality. The clerk looks up, her face calm and professional, though her eyes betray a flicker of understanding. She keeps her emotions at bay. Her job is to guide, explain the process, point out where to fill in, where to sign. D follows each step quietly. Everything unfolds quickly, silently. No arguments, no tears, no surprises, just ink on paper, closing a contract that once promised forever. Relief seeps in slowly, like air escaping a tightly sealed jar. But with it comes a bitter aftertaste, a sense of something incomplete. D has waited for this day for so long, quietly counting down. Yet deep down, he still hesitates to fully let go. Stepping out of the courthouse, he feels lighter, but not truly free. A strange peace wraps around him. Yet behind it lingers the echo of his former wife's presence. Sounds in his memory he cannot silence. Perhaps that's why his steps don't lead straight home. Instead, almost unconsciously, he finds himself heading toward her house. His mind tells him it's foolish, unnecessary. But his heart whispers otherwise. Maybe, just by standing before that familiar door one more time, he can truly close this circle. The house remains unchanged. The door stands silent, shut tight. D lingers longer than needed, staring at walls that once held laughter, arguments, and promises, kept or broken. Now, there's only emptiness, the hollow echo of what once was. He sighs, then pulls out his phone. Not to beg, not to blame. Just a message, short, detached, almost cold. A way to stitch up a wound that's bled for too long. Whether she reads it or not, responds or not, he knows. Life must go on. And perhaps this is the final push he needs. Meanwhile, in another corner of the city, peace is slowly returning to Huyen and little Maya. After countless restless nights, this morning's dawn arrives gently, carrying a warmth like a blessing. Sunlight filters through the leaves outside, casting golden patches on the ground. Huyen sits quietly in her small home, her eyes tracing familiar details. The worn table, weathered by years, the walls marked by time, the corners holding silent memories. In their simplicity, she finds something rare, a piece she hasn't touched in ages. Maya runs up, her eyes sparkling, her tiny backpack swinging like a treasure. "Mom, come with me," she chirps, her smile as radiant as the morning sun. Huyen laughs, a laugh only a mother's love can produce, full of warmth and hope. She takes her daughter's small hand, and together they step outside. The breeze plays with Maya's hair as they walk down the narrow street. The sound of her childish laughter rings out like music, spreading through the neighborhood. For Maya, mornings like this are magical. As long as her mother is by her side, the world belongs to just the two of them. At the school gate, Huyen kneels, her eyes filled with trust and love. Maya blends into the stream of children, then disappears behind the classroom door. Once again, Huyen walks alone, along the familiar path, past familiar houses, but her heart feels a little lighter today. A garden comes into view. Rows of radishes stand sturdy, their roots plump, gifts from the earth. Huyen bends down, her hands patiently pulling each one, the basket on her back growing heavier. Each radish isn't just weight, it's hope. At the market, the streets are alive. The calls of vendors, the smell of food, the chatter and laughter intertwine. Noisy, bustling, but beautiful in its own way. Huyen sits in her small corner, arranging the radishes neatly. The scent of earth mixes with the market's aroma, pulling her back into the familiar rhythm of life. She softly calls out to passers-by, "Fresh radishes, ma'am." Some stop, some pass by. But for Huyen, every glance, every smile, every small exchange is proof that life goes on. A stranger's casual compliment is enough to warm her, to fuel her strength for another day. This road has never been easy. It's paved with hardship, sacrifice, and stretches of loneliness. Yet woven within are small joys. Maya's laughter, the kindness of customers, the pride of a hard day's work. These are the lights that guide her way. At night, Huyen sits by the bed, stretching her tired body, still brimming with life. Outside, birds chirp faintly, and a gentle breeze slips through the window, brushing her hair. She lingers, simply breathing, savoring the quiet beauty of the moment. Finally, she puts on her old hat, the faded shirt that's weathered countless sunny days. Before stepping out, she pauses. Questions flood in. Am I on the right path? Were these choices correct? Doubt swirls around her like crashing waves. Huyen feels herself at a crossroads. Which path leads to peace and which to regret? She isn't sure. Perhaps no one ever is. But deep within, a truth smolders. The beauty of life isn't in avoiding pain, but in facing it, daring to choose, even when the answers are never clear. Dee stood silently at the threshold, hesitating, the old hat in his hand, the worn shirt draped loosely over his shoulder. Both carried the scent of sun, sweat, and years of labor. His feet felt heavy, as if shackled by doubts. He wondered, should he keep moving forward, pushing on relentlessly, or should he stop, seeking a quieter, less precarious place? The questions swirled endlessly, refusing to let go. At times, Dee doubted himself. Did he still have the strength to keep going? He felt like a wheel spinning endlessly, caught in a relentless cycle with no rest, no direction. And yet, he stepped outside. The sun blazed, its light gilding the earth. Before him stretched a small field, rows of fresh green vegetables neatly aligned. The rain from yesterday left shimmering puddles on the ground. Dee gave a faint smile, murmuring, "There's bound to be frogs today." A spark of hope flickered in his eyes as he waded into the field to search. His feet sank lightly into the wet mud, his gaze scanning every patch of earth. Each time he bent down, each splash of his hand in the water, it was as if he were chasing not just a frog, but a rhythm of faith. The work was muddy, repetitive, exhausting, but it pulled him out of the noise in his mind, forcing him to live fully in the moment. Sweat poured down, soaking his old shirt, clinging to his back. His calloused, mud-streaked hands worked tirelessly. Then suddenly, a movement. A frog leaped from a puddle, splattering mud everywhere. Dee lunged forward, catching it in his weathered hands. A smile broke across his face, shattering the fatigue. "Got you," he whispered, his voice soft, but his joy unmistakable. It wasn't just about catching a frog. It was proof that patience and persistence would yield results, no matter how small. Each frog he held tight added to a swelling joy, like tiny victories stacking up in his chest. His body grew heavier, his muscles ached, but his spirit wouldn't let him stop. When his hands were full, his body caked in mud, his shirt drenched with sweat and field water, none of it mattered. The smile on his face still shone, quietly brimming with pride. Each frog wasn't just a prize. It was a reward, a reminder that even in the dirtiest, most grueling work, there was meaning. Finally, his strength gave out, but Dee's heart was full of satisfaction. He walked to the small courtyard where a pond awaited. Kneeling down, he gently released the frogs into a corner of the pond he'd prepared. Then, without hesitation, he plunged into the cool water. The pond embraced him, washing away the mud, sweat, and the weight of the long day. It wasn't just relief, it was rebirth. In that fleeting moment, he felt weightless, free of burdens, floating in a pocket of peace. In another corner of the town, the man who once stood before the
Huyền
courthouse
và cô
caught
gái
between
nhỏ
relief and
maya
bitterness.
men theo
His
con
journey
đường
was
núi
far from over.
hẹp dưới
He was
ánh
learning to
nắng
let
gay
go,
gắt của
to
mùa
move
hè.
forward without dragging the shadows
Dù
of the past.
Maya
Each step he took was
ngày
still
càng mệt
hesitant,
mỏi và
each
sốt
choice still
cao, Huyền
but
vẫn
even
tiếp
he,
tục
with
hái
mud-stained
dương
hands
xỉ
and a
trong
heart
rừng,
thick with doubt, found
biết
unexpected
rằng
joy
mỗi bó
in
là
the leap
thức
of a
ăn,
frog from a puddle,
là thuốc
in the cool
men
embrace of the
và
pond
học
after a
phí.
hard day.
Tại khu
Perhaps that's
du
the
lịch
truth of life.
suối cá nhộn nhịp,
Pass
họ
through
bán
brokenness.
rau, đối mặt với
They carry
những lời từ
burdens.
chối liên tiếp.
They make choices
Trong
without
ánh mắt
knowing what
của
lies ahead.
Maya dán chặt vào món
And
đồ
yet,
chơi mà em
they
không
keep
hiện
moving.
có.
Because amid
Rồi
courthouse
đó,
doors and market
trong
corners,
căn nhà đơn
muddy
sơ,
fields and
được
quiet
thắp ánh
rooms,
sáng
life
bởi
offers
chiếc
small
đèn
gifts.
sạc mới, hai
Sometimes
mẹ
it's the
con
peace
chia
after a
sẻ
storm.
những bữa ăn giản dị,
Sometimes
trân
it's a
trọng
child's clear
những chiến
laughter.
thắng nhỏ.
Sometimes
Trong khi
it's
đó
just a
ở
frog
nơi
in the palm
xa,
of your hand
đệ
after
không
hours
ngừng
of
tìm
searching.
kiếm họ,
Those small
ghé
things
qua
remind
các
why he
chợ
must keep
và
going.
hỏi thăm người
Why even
lạ.
when the road is long and shrouded in fog,
Một cuộc
he
tình
must take
cờ
one more
mang
step.
đến tin tức Huyền
And
và
perhaps
Maya có
when he
thể
looks
đang
back,
ở Cẩm
he'll
Liên
realize
với
every
hy
burden,
vọng mới
every
để lập
tear,
tức lên đường,
every frog
quyết
caught in
tâm
the
đoàn
mud.
tụ.
They all led him here
Những hành trình
to
đan
a
xen
life
của họ
that's
nói nên
imperfect,
sự kiên
but
cường
still worth
và
living,
hy sinh
profound
và sức mạnh
and
bất khuất
complete.
của